And now, oh yeah, okay. One more eyeball thing. So, Kat and I, this is going to be kind of short, I hope. Kat and I started Arcane. You know, we're always on the latest trend, you know? We just started Arcane. I haven't watched it because she's never put it on for me, and as I've said, she is the only reason I watch anything. I just watch what she puts on. And she had never been interested in it. She doesn't care about League of Legends. Although she has heard about it because we live in the Bay Area and she has Asian friends. So of course she's heard about League of Legends. I never watched it also in part just because I'm like, it's League of Legends, whatever, you know. I have a little bit of PTSD from League. So things related to it sometimes are like hard for me to look at. But I heard it was good and I was like, I'm sure it's good. For whatever reason, I think she said she started watching it, and then one reason or another, we were like, let's just watch it together. She'd only seen 2 episodes. We've only seen 4 episodes at this point of 9, and I have to say, Arcane is, so far, and I kind of imagine unless they completely fuck it up in the last half of the season, or the second season, very good. The show is actually very good and very well put together. In fact, I would say that it's great in a very normal way. In such a normal way that it's almost kind of boring to talk about from a story perspective. I think from an art perspective, it's actually pretty exceptional. I think the direction and the storyboarding and the visuals and all of that is actually great. It's a real visual feast. Really interesting direction. I think it uses the fact that it's animation and you can get shots that would otherwise be impossible. I think it really uses that to its advantage. Some visually great looking shots, really cool framing in a lot of shots. The colors are really neat, what they do with the lighting and all that, to add really intense mood. Very, very striking visual presentation. Probably my favorite part of the show, actually, is just seeing how they present the more, like everything that is emotional feels like there's some kind of a strong visual presentation to go along with it. And I really like that. Story-wise, again, it is just... It's good in a highly technical way. All of the character, you know, they do a good job establishing the setting because this is, I think it was almost imperative to them. Kat was like, oh yeah, no, I heard that you don't have to play League of Legends to understand what's going on. And I said, oh, I'm sure that it was a priority that they said, do not make them play League of Legends to understand the show. Do not make them. So it does a very good job of establishing this setting, which is just a small slice of the overall League of Legends world of Runeterra. Establishing this setting of Piltover and Zaun, establishing the rules and the culture and the dynamics that are going on in society that are the kind of spur the characters. The characters are very well introduced. I think the dialogue is very good. It illuminates a lot about who the characters are, what they want, where they're coming from, what they believe and value. And the plot pushes ahead I heard some people say that they thought the opening was a little bit slow. I thought it pushed ahead at a pretty good clip. Like you could take the first 3 episodes and essentially put them together into a movie, right? The same way you could with like Phantom Blood, first 3 episodes of part 1 of JoJo, for instance. And then there's like a time skip to the more modern day. Yeah, it's just everything is established. I think it does a pretty good job at getting you interested, at least in presenting interesting, understandable characters and settings. to the viewer, to such a degree that I feel like the only way that you wouldn't like it, that I can understand someone saying they didn't like the show, like actively disliked it, is if you just personally find the conflict very uninteresting. Arcane is a rags versus riches class war kind of story. It takes place in a small little slice of Runeterra, like I said, between these two cities, Piltover and Zaun. Piltover is this traditionally very steampunk aesthetic place that then gets kind of industrialized via what's basically technology that harnesses magic called hex tech. That's something that happens during the course of the show, but they start out as steampunky, so they retain a lot of that sort of aesthetic. They've still hung on to that. And Zaun is, what would people call it? I think people sometimes call it a chem punk or whatever. Very down and dirty slums, dark. It's the wrong side of the tracks. Factories, chemicals, human experiments, gangs. It's the nice top side. I think they would call it the top side, and the dingy, murky, seedy underbelly of Zaun. The main characters, Vi and Powder, who's later Jinx, it starts off when they are little girls and then kind of progresses until there's like a break point in the story, and then there's a time skip to them as like young adults-ish. I think like maybe 10 years, I believe. It also includes Victor and Jace in sort of a side storyline to explain the progress that the world is undergoing, which becomes important to like the overall narrative. It does seem to be a story with a lot of societal themes and, people relating to the society around them. So setting the story at a point of flux and a point of development for that society is, I think, a good move. What's almost more interesting to me than the show itself is just the decision-making that I think went into deciding on this story. Because if you're going to do a League of Legends prestige television series, and it's your first outing, and a lot of people, now I think a lot more people are warmed up to the world and stuff, and they like it. This is, when it's unproven, I think this is a very good story to start out with. I think of all of the of the little storylines and locations and things that go on in the League universe, and okay, I'll preface this with saying that I'll quickly add in, I played League for long enough that I can't really remember what stuff they've retconned and what stuff is still in the lore. So some of my memory might be a little hazy. League of Legends completely reset its lore in 2014 after like 4 or 5 years. And they just kind of built up after that. So I kind of forget like what is still around. I believe Arcane is not based off of any particular storyline, but it is essentially taking characters who are pretty popular, who are all kind of involved with each other, and extrapolating a story that involves all or most of them. Zaun and Piltover are relatively popular regions in the game. There are tons of characters from both, especially Zaun, actually, now that I think of it. And as a story, if you're like, okay, so Jinx, Vi, and Caitlyn were always pretty popular when they were released for gameplay and like aesthetic reasons. Jinx is like a cosplay favorite, And they always had like a connection with each other that was sort of kept vague. It was like a wink, wink, like, oh, what is? I think Jinx always had a voice line implying that she had a sister, and it's like, oh, well, maybe there's that's one of Vi or Caitlyn. Who knows? I don't know if they ever confirmed it in the actual official lore at any point, but in Arcane, that's basically what they go with, that Jinx and Vi were sisters, which I think is pretty. I do like the way that they handle the characters. They haven't like gotten, and they haven't handled like my favorite characters from the setting, so I don't feel too much. They aren't too precious to me. So I can't say that like, oh, this isn't what I like about these guys, but. I do like what they've been doing with the characters. It's also you get the chance to tell a very personal story that has a lot of character, that is driven by the characters. So it can be kind of small scope in that sense. The stakes can be very personal, which tends to be very engaging. But you can also, because of the setting and the context that's required for the setting and the way the context has shaped these characters, you also get to establish a bunch of stuff about the world. And I think about some of the bigger storylines or plot points from the League universe, and it's like, what do I think of? There's like the Demacia Noxus stuff. There's Noxus invading Ionia. There's like the Shurima Ascension bullshit with the Darken. There's the fucking Ruined King. Maybe they'll do another Ruined King storyline. Maybe third time's the charm. Maybe they'll get it right this time. I think my personal favorite lore thing has always been the thing with Zed, Shen, and Jin. But that takes place, that's like very localized, I feel. That's like a very localized story between like 4 or 5 maybe characters. This gets to involve a little bit more of the universe and actually like establish more. Although I love Jin. Oh my god, I love Jin so much as a character. He's so cool. He was so fun. But I do totally get why this was the one that they picked. Yeah, I don't know. It makes a lot of sense from a storytelling standpoint. And it does feel like, yeah, this is doing service to the potential of the lore dumps that have historically served League of Legends' story and world and characters. I like the direction that they've taken most of the characters. And, I mean, yeah, for now, I mean, I don't imagine the show shaking up too much. It feels very consistent. So I am interested to see where it goes. For the most part, like, yeah, it's honestly, yeah, it's good in a way that makes it kind of boring. I feel like there's not a whole lot to talk about that it does that's super unique from a story or storytelling standpoint. Although there's I don't know, everything's just very good. The writers are just very good. So I have faith that it will carry that through. I will say probably my biggest negative with the show is the intro. Look, okay, I knew that I'd known before that Imagine Dragons did the opening for the show. They did the theme song. I'd heard the theme song beforehand, and I was like, oh, what is this? And then I found out it was from Arcane. The connection hadn't been made for me at first. So I went in knowing that, and it made sense to me because I was like, okay, they've actually... Imagine Dragons and Riot Games are actually frequent collaborators. Imagine Dragons, or ID to the hip kids, performed at, I want to say, the 2014 Worlds. They've done songs for Riot for other events before. They've actually done quite a bit for League of Legends. Actually, funny enough, tangent. Back in the day when I was really into League, my dad was like, oh, I'm interested in what this thing is that you're always spending all your time on. Tell me about it. And I explained the game to him, and he got really interested in it. And he didn't play it. No. But he did get interested enough to actually watch like professional LCS games with me. And he got actually pretty into it. And he liked following it and having me explain the game to him. And it was actually a really fun time. That was around like 2015-ish. And I remember one day he said, near the start of him kind of doing a little bit of research into the game, he said something like, yeah, I wanted to see what the big finals looked like. And I saw like the world championship or something. And they had this big, really impressive looking stadium. There was a ton of people there. And they had this this kind of gay band playing. I don't remember if he said gay. He might have said lame or something, but it was like in that vein. It was like kind of not what the yeah, wasn't too into it. And I was like, yeah, it's Imagine Dragons or ID to the hip kids. So I knew that, and I was okay. So at this point, I just skip the intro. I just skip the intro every time now. Oh my God, I can't stand. Oh, the misery. Everybody wants to be my enemy. That's what he sounds like. The fucking helium voice. So I knew that. And then I was like, did they do that for the second season? Do you know? Like, did they also get the ID back to do the second season's opening? And she said, Kat was like, no, actually, it's actually 21 Pilots. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. They went 0 for 2. That's crazy. Twice? I can get like, you've worked with them before. Let's tap them to do an intro. But then 21 Pilots. Are you kidding? Maybe this is a me thing. I have never liked 21 Pilots. I have just... The first song I ever heard from them was like the Stressed Out or something when I was in middle school. And from the first time I heard them, I was like, this does not work for me. This is really annoying. I can't believe... That really boggles my mind. I'm sorry to the 21 Pilots lovers out there, but this is an anti 21 Pilots podcast, and I'm gonna have to. Last time it was Dawn to Dawn, or the time before that. Now it's 21 Pilots. Yeah. That's what I'm gonna bitch about for the rest of time. I'd like not to. So, yeah, Arcane, we will continue it, and we both got pretty into it, actually. By the third episode, Kat said she actually was very invested in it, and in fact, it's gotten so bad that her picture on Discord has been changed to Jinx wearing a Santa hat. So, that's where we're at in our relationship right now. But yes, Arcane, quite good.